If you ever wanted to run your own podcast, you don't want to miss this episode. My next guest went from living with convicted felons in prison for over 5 years to rubbing elbows with multimillionaires every single day. My man, Zachary Babcock, is the host of the top-rated podcast, Underdog Empowerment. He's a student of psychology, business, and marketing with a broad perspective from both extremes of life. He runs a podcast production company called Podcast Penthouse Media and helps entrepreneurs just like you launch and produce top shelf podcasts. Let's begin. Welcome to High-End Client Acquisition Podcast. My name is Marian. I'm your host, and this show is here to teach you how to attract your dream clients on autopilot in 30 days or less. Each week, I bring you a guest or a strategy that can help you take your business to the next level. Don't forget, you can always get the episodes in your inbox or messenger at clientacquisitionpodcast.com. My man, Zach. So first of all, I got to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on the High-End Client Acquisition Show. And of course, as I talked in the intro, I really love the way that your journey, it's just, your story is just insane. But for people that have no idea who you are, maybe they're just getting familiar with you. Do you mind just give us your story in a nutshell so people get a little more familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. And thanks for having me on the show, Marian. I appreciate that, man. This is what I live and breathe podcast, man. Dude, yeah. So in a nutshell, it's a hell of a nutshell. I made a lot of poor decisions growing up. I never had like a real chief aim in life, and because of that, I landed myself in prison. I did over 4 years flat in prison, and I came home, and I was 23 when I came home. I stayed out for about 9 months, and I ended up going back to prison just 20 days before my twin sons were born, and for getting a DWI. And that was so tough, bro. Like to try and explain that in words, it's like impossible. I mean, I felt big enough to sit on a penny and swing my feet from it. Because here I am missing out on the one thing that I've always wanted in my life. And I always wanted to be the father that I didn't have growing up. And I ended up doing 8 months, and I came home, couldn't get a job anywhere, was struggling, but I had my resolve. I made a decision that I was going to turn my life around, become a responsible father and happy and successful, even though I didn't know what happy and successful even looked like at this time in my life. But I pushed, and I got into network marketing at first. And at the time when I was presented the opportunity, I didn't even know what the hell network marketing was, so you couldn't scare me off with the word pyramid scheme. But I did that for about 2 years. I built almost a $2,000 monthly residual income. However, I lost my passion for it because it just wasn't my thing. And there's good network marketing companies out there and good network marketers out there, but I was taught just to spam your lists and just focus on opportunity, and not really building any relationships and not networking the right way. And that's one of the huge reasons why I lost my passion for it. So I struggled after that. I was trying to do life coaching, never had any success with it because I didn't know anything about marketing. And then I launched a podcast, and it became Underdog Empowerment, became a top 200 rated podcast in the first week. It blew up, started interviewing these celebrities, professional athletes, industry leaders, all this stuff, right? But it gave me that in where before nobody took me seriously. I was just that ex-convict turned entrepreneur afterthought, to now I have this platform that everybody's wanting to jump on, and opportunity just started spreading, man. And we took off and ran with it ever since, man.
That's crazy, dude. And I know, this was just a short 1 minute version of it, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into your story. What do you think was your why? Like, for example, when you said, all right, now I'm going to turn my life around and I'm going to make something with it. What was your why? Because a lot of people, I think, and I'm in the marketing world, and sometimes we need to go behind the story and understand, because sometimes that's what customers need. Sometimes, people, like in real life, you just need to understand like what's your why so you can push really hard when it's really tough. And I mean, you live that, to a whole nother level. But what was your why? Like, why did you say, all right, I'm going to do whatever it takes? And then you start into that, and that failed and you lost your passion. Like, what was the thing that kind of pushed you, all right, another step and then another one, and so on and so forth?
Dude, I love this question. And it's such an important piece for any achievement in life for any person. It really is, man. It's the driving force. And for me, I really believe that why it grows and expands and evolves as you grow and expand and evolve. Like if you ask me what my ultimate like goal or end goal or purpose, whatever it is right now, if you ask me that maybe a month from now or 6 months from now or a year from now, it'll probably be completely different, or maybe not completely different, but it'll be added on. So for me, what it was, like I mentioned, I grew up without that chief aim, without that why. Throughout my whole life, I didn't have that father figure, and I was looking up to all the wrong role models growing up. And that led to a lot of poor decisions because I wanted to do stupid things to fit in with people. But when I woke up in that jail cell and learning that I was going back to prison and I was going to miss out on the birth of my twin boys, that was the initial why. It was like, I'm going to be a responsible father. I'm not going to be away from my children and them growing up and having their dad in prison. Like I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be in their life and I'm going to be the father that I didn't have. And that was it for me. And that was the strong, and I didn't know how. That's why the why is so important, because I didn't know how I was going to be happy and successful. I didn't even know what that looked like. I didn't even know when I was coming home at the time. And they could have held me for a year and a half because I still had a year and a half left on my parole. I knew it was going to be 6 months to a year and a half, somewhere in between there. I didn't know when I was coming home how I was going to make it happen, but I had that strong reason why it was going to happen no matter what. And it's grown and evolved so much since then. It's still being in my boy's life and my kid's life is still a huge factor of my why, but that's what it all started off with.
Yeah, love to hear that, man, and the way that you explain it, because I think that can really relate to a lot of my customers and a lot of my listeners, because you can think about that in every person's life. So for example, if you have a husband or a wife that just works too much and is not home for the time that you or him or her wants to spend time with the kids, is just like, all right, figuring it out how to actually push that business or that venture forward so you can actually gain that freedom. And in your scenario, the freedom meant more than just freedom. It was more, all right, I want to be with my kids and I want to be present in their lives. And I think that's super important for people to understand. And yeah, thanks a lot for sharing all that, man. I know it's a pretty deep story, and it's a pretty deep feeling for you, and I love that. So you mentioned something really important. You said, all right, nobody paid attention to me until I had a podcast. Why do you think was that? You know what, man?
I know the exact reason why now, but I didn't know during the time. And I had a feeling, I was just like, that's why the whole reason why I started Underdog Empowerment. It's like for that person with that grandiose vision, with all the odds stacked against them, everybody counting them out, even laughing at them, regardless of their current resources. You look at Elon Musk, he's an underdog. He's a billionaire underdog because he's trying to get us to planet Mars. Like the odds of him happening are slim to none. But I felt like it was like, man, nobody's giving me a chance just because of my past. And I'm going to go out and prove these people wrong because my past doesn't define me. It's what I'm doing now. But the reason to answer that question, though, it's funny. I was literally going through the Funnel Hacks Masterclass when I was getting into first learning about marketing stuff, because my marketing was horrible when I was trying to be a life coach. And so I understood I needed to become better at that. And in one of those trainings, Russell Brunson was talking about, he mentioned a client of his or somebody, he was telling a story of somebody. He said, man, nobody was giving me a chance. Like I couldn't get through any doors. Nobody gave me any time of the day. He said, but then I launched my podcast and everything changed and all those doors became unlocked for me instantly. And at the time I was going through that myself. It stung. I was like, wow, I've been trying to do this. And I started out building my brand on YouTube and Facebook. I prefer video actually over audio, believe it or not. And so I put off podcasting for almost 2 years because I was like, that's not my zone of genius. I'm on video. And then when I heard him say, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I did it, and exactly just how Russell talked about that story with the guy rang exactly true with myself. It was crazy.
Awesome, man. So let's get a little bit behind what you do now, because you work with so many podcasters, right? And you see so many things behind the scenes. Let's assume, so our audience is, a lot of coaches, consultants, thought leaders that want to necessarily get clients regardless of the medium that they get the clients from, right? And of course, I look at podcast as a great way to educate and stay in touch with your audience and, in a way, nurture them that you don't even need to sell, because now they hear you sharing so much information. But let's assume somebody's just starting out and they say, all right, and including me, my podcast is pretty new. Like I had the YouTube channel for, more than I had my podcast. But if somebody's just starting out now, they look, on iTunes and they realize like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to break through the noise and actually rank my podcast. How can someone actually start a podcast from scratch now and let's say have a successful launch of it? Not necessarily going to the first 10, because of course, you need some real tactics to get there and more than that. But let's assume how they can have a successful launch of that brand on a podcast medium.
Yeah, man. And that's dude, I'm fired up. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's not really, and it comes easy to me. And I know it could seem like daunting and overwhelming for somebody that doesn't know anything about podcasts, but I really love what you're doing here with your podcast. And you brought up some really good points too about that. Just like you're listening in right now, you're talking about building that relationship. You're listening in right now. You almost feel like a fly on the wall. Like you feel like you're a part of that intimate conversation that we're having right now. And that's the beauty of podcasts. You'll be able to build that deep, meaningful relationship with your audience. And if you think about it though, yeah, you're like, you might be thinking like, how am I going to break through that noise and that space and stuff? Yeah, as of right now, there's over 600,000 active Apple podcasts as at the time of this recording. Over 600,000. That's a lot of podcasts out there. But let's compare that to the YouTube channels that have millions of them out there and the blogs that have millions of blogs out there. You're sitting in a way less saturated space, and you're able to break through that noise because of that and be able to stand out. So I definitely could walk through, in which I have, which we'll definitely get into, about ranking and stuff on it, which is huge, especially in the beginning, building that momentum. But what I teach everybody that comes through my program, dude, is the most important piece, and it's the 4 W's. Because if you don't have these 4 W's in place, you're not going to have long-term success in podcasting, and you'll miss out on so many people. And is it cool if I run through those 4 W's real quick?
Sure. Exactly.
Sweet, dude. So and all these 4 W's that I'm going to share is what you're going to incorporate in your title, in your show description, in your intro for your podcast, topics that you talk about on your podcast. It's all incorporated in it, and it's the reason why people are going to come check you out in the first place and why they're going to stick around. So the first W is what? What is your podcast about? You got to be able to communicate that very effectively and not confuse anybody, and be able to explain it. If somebody were to ask you, be able to explain it in 1 sentence or better. And then you're also going to throw this throughout your podcast description. And communication is just like baseball. Like a bad throw in baseball will cost you a run or two, or could potentially even cost you the game. The same thing here. You got in your show description, if somebody lands on your podcast because they type in a keyword and your podcast pops up on iTunes and they're checking you out, first thing they're going to do, they're going to read the title, and then and look at the cover art, and if it entices them more, they're going to read the show description, and before they actually start tuning into your podcast. And in that show description, if you can't communicate very clearly what it is that your podcast is about, if you miss the mark, then they might not even check you out in the first place, and you could be missing out on somebody that would be a raving friend that would run and tell all of their friends and bring you so many listeners and potential customers to your podcast, but you just missed out because you didn't communicate effectively by hitting on the what. So it's really important to hit on what is your podcast about and be able to explain it in 1 sentence or better. And then next up, the who. Obviously, if you don't have an audience, you're just speaking into a microphone full of air and nobody on the other side. And so I like to break this down, guys. Like it's a marketing podcast. It's just like doing your customer avatar, your ideal customer avatar in business. We'll use e-commerce for an example. In e-commerce, you could have multiple audiences. You might be selling people that love expensive pens, or you might be selling t-shirts, or you might be selling funny, quote, coffee mugs, or whatever it is. It could be multiple different audiences, and you aren't necessarily the face. You don't have to be the face of it. You could just be running ads to that product, right? Well, in podcasts, it's a lot similar, but it's different in the fact of you're going to have one specific audience, and you are the face. You are the voice of the podcast, and people are tuning in because of you. They don't necessarily have to like you, but they're tuning in because they want to hear your viewpoints, your beliefs, and your perspective on things. Like Howard Stern, look for an example. Russell Brunson talks about, he's very polarizing. Half the people hate him, half the people love him, but all the eyeballs and all the attention is on the guy, right? So you're that person for your podcast. And what I recommend for your podcast is to be your audience is who you were yesterday. Because when a lot of people get the wrong thing in branding, when companies are branding like Walmart, they can make up an ideal customer avatar. But if you're building a personal brand and you make up an ideal customer avatar that doesn't resonate and fit with you, and now you're trying to be that perfect person for the avatar, there's an incongruence there. And it doesn't work. So what I like to do and what I like to recommend is, like, let's go back to the e-commerce example. If you have a podcast about e-commerce, obviously you're very passionate about e-commerce. You're probably in e-commerce, and you're probably talking about things that you've learned in e-commerce and how to do e-commerce and things that you're currently learning with your audience. So your audience should be that person who you were yesterday. And it's so key to really hit on exactly who you're speaking to. It's a lot what I do on Underdog Empowerment. And I'm pretty sure it's the same exact thing you're doing on this podcast, because you're having killer success right out the gate with it. And then let's move on to the third W, which is where are you taking them? So everybody needs that fearless leader that they can get behind, that can give them a future that not only they have to desire that future, but also have faith in that future. Because if they fear that future, it paralyzes them, and they don't take action. But if you can give somebody faith in the future, that renders them perceptive to change. So you got to really communicate and articulate this throughout your podcast, throughout the show description, maybe in the intro, and where it is that you're taking your audience that they actually desire and that they have faith in. And then last but not least is the why. Why should they listen to you? And that's a big one, man, because you already got a head start in the fact that you're you and you're uniquely different. Nobody else is alike on this earth is alike you. You're like completely uniquely different. So that's awesome, but that's not enough. And we'll say on the topic for e-commerce, for example, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of other e-commerce podcasts out there. So what separates you from those other e-commerce podcasts? How are you going to come at this differently? And what I like to do, what I do with every single, all my students is I say, list out the top 10 e-commerce podcasts out there. All right. Now you have that list of people that you can invite on your show and then potentially go on their show. But more importantly, now you have that list. Now look at that top 10. What makes you different from these other 10 in your space? And some people might be like, oh, it's too hard to figure out. Well, I do it in mine. The very first sentence in my show description says, from living with convicted felons for over 5 years of my life to rubbing elbows with multimillionaires every day, I'm a student of psychology, business, and marketing with a unique, broad perspective from both extremes of life. So that's like automatically sets me apart from other podcasts that are like mine. And it's interesting. Now, obviously, you might not went to prison. Not a lot of people have. But there's something about you that sets you uniquely different. You might be very polarizing person on e-commerce topics versus everybody else is real cut and dry and professional and dull or something. Or you might be able to inject humor throughout the entire episode, and now you're educating and entertaining your audience at the same time. Whatever it is, find some type of angle that separates yourself from all the other 10 podcasts that you listed out. And if you incorporate these 4 W's into your podcast, into the show description, your name, throughout the topics that you talk about, the intros and outros on your podcast, that's what's going to set you up for long-term success. And it is the most important piece to your podcast.
Wow, dude, like you killed it. Thanks a lot for sharing all that. So no, that's legit. And what I'll probably do is, as soon as we are live with this show, I'll make sure that I actually break it down into a full article, because you shared a lot of stuff over there that I think a lot of people can literally just go back, pause, play, go back and understand, like, right, let me see what I'm doing wrong. And even now, like your last part, why they should listen to you, I think right there, I'm making myself a mistake. So for example, one thing that would be in my story is I'm an immigrant in US, right? I don't have listed that in my description, and I think that's probably a missing point for me.
100%, dude.
That could be something. So now, like, just by you sharing that, I'm thinking like, all right, what am I doing wrong? So, okay, this is the thing that I'm doing wrong. I got to make sure that I'm taking notes, and then as soon as we're done, I'm going to go ahead and implement it. So, no, you shared some killer strategies over there. So let's assume somebody goes through all of that. They realize, all right, these are the 4 W's. I did my best to implement them. What's next?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is the launch phase. So, and this is critical too. And real quick, I just want to say one thing before we move right in that. Just go right back to what you're talking about, because you're already crushing it, dude. I continually update my show description as it grows and gets more clear and focused and refined on the 4 W's. Like, I just updated it like a month and a half ago. I don't know exactly when, but not too long ago, and continue to update it. So you don't have to have it like perfect right out the gate. Done's better than perfect. So I just want to put that out there. And lastly, definitely incorporate, because not only are you an immigrant into the United States starting out, so you already had like the underdog thing going for you already, but you fucking crushed it, dude. You're a millionaire, dude. You fucking blew it up in ClickFunnels, not through just your ClickFunnels, but through your own products and services. So you already like, damn, this is why you should check me out. And that's a huge reason, because you know what the fuck you're doing, man. So that's huge right there. But yeah, man, everybody thinks that to rank a podcast on iTunes that you got to have a huge audience, or you got to know power players, or know someone who secretly works on Apple and have them rank you. Like, they think you got to know all this crazy stuff, and you don't, dude. Like, you don't have to have a huge audience. You don't have to know the power players or nothing. You just got to have a hustle. You just got to have a grind. And here's the 4 metrics, the only 4 metrics that ever count for anything on iTunes to get a new and noteworthy, to get in the top 200, to whatever. It's these 4 metrics and these 4 metrics only. And it's getting reviews, getting ratings, getting people to subscribe, and getting people to download your podcast. So right out the gate, what are you lacking? Well, you're lacking all of them, but like, you're competing with these other top podcasters that have been around for years and that are getting thousands and millions of downloads per month. So you're definitely going to be lacking a lot of downloads right out the gate, and you're also going to be lacking a lot of others. But the number 1 metric is a written review that holds more weight than just a download does, or subscribe. The hierarchy of that would be reviews, ratings, subscribes, downloads, in that order. And so you go out and you hustle and you get people to leave you a review on your podcast. In your first 8 weeks on iTunes, that's when you can hit on new and noteworthy, and they're going to favor you and they're going to push you up in their rankings. So if you can literally get, dude, I had a student, Andrew S. Kaplan at the Shatter the Mold podcast that I worked with recently. We got him ranked in less than 48 hours from him launching on iTunes, and he got ranked with 50 reviews on iTunes and was in the top 200, and was able to take that screenshot, because you're not going to stick around in the top 200, because like we mentioned, you're competing with these guys that are just blowing you out the water in the beginning because they've been around for a lot longer. The main thing is now you're a top 200 rated podcaster. You broke the top 200 charts. You own that title. Can't ever be stripped away from you. Take that, screenshot it, and leverage it, and start getting these celebrities and stuff on your show. That's building your positioning, your credibility, all that stuff. And you're going to leverage that throughout, and then you're going to continue to grow your podcast and get back into the rankings eventually down the road. But it's huge to do that right out the gate and build that momentum for your show.
Awesome, man. I love it. And let's assume we are in the launch phase. What's your best advice right there? Is it a giveaway? Is it something that you are going to package it up with your own products or services, and you're going to make, a crazy offer that you got to put it out to people? What's the thing that you would say, all right, we've tried it with it and it just works. You have to just try this thing. And, of course, there are different industries and different type of niches, whatever you want to call it. What's your thought on that in terms of the actual launch phase for, brand new listeners to go in there, assuming that, let's say you don't have a huge list. Let's say you have, $2,000-$3,000 2,000 people on your email list, or even less than that, using paid ads or using whatever strategies you like to let our audience know about what's the behind the scenes of that.
Yeah, man, exactly. So it's all about that hustle and that grind. If you got that, you're good to go. And I was just getting ready to say it right before you said it. When I started, I didn't have a huge list. I had like 600 people on my email list. I had like 3,340 something friends on my Facebook at the time. I remember that because I messaged them all, and I'm gonna tell you why. But what I found, what works, and now if you are in a position where you have a huge list and can run contests and your cash flow is good, then yes, you're obviously in a better position to do it faster. But even if you don't, I didn't when I did, and this is what I did when I found what works. If you just make a post on Facebook or Instagram or wherever your spot is that you hang out, and you ask people to go and subscribe to your podcast and leave a review, nobody's going to do it because you're just making a post to everybody. It's general and nobody's going to take action on it. And you might get one or two people that actually do it. But if you will take the time and personally message these people and not in a non-spammy way, and in a good networking way, like I'm glad I had that networking marketing experience of what not to do in networking, because that's paid dividends now of how to actually network people the right way. But if you could do it in the right way, in a non-spammy way, and get people and just hit people up personally, that personalized message, they'll take action on it versus just trying to put out a post and reaching everybody at once with it.
No, and I love this. And literally the way that we got connected for this podcast and for yours as well was through a personal message as a connection between us. And it doesn't matter. Like I think people miss out on this because it's not a numbers game. It's not, all right, this how many people you're going to message per day, is also how you're going to message them, right? Because I'm pretty sure you get tons of messages every day of either people that want to get on your show or just to pick your brain for 15 minutes or whatever. I think it's also important for the people that are going to do this to do it in a way that it's right and do it in a way that it's not spammy the way that you mentioned. So no, I love that, man. Now, all right, let's get to the phase where, all right, we launched the podcast. It's all good. Now, what's your strategy of actually generating leads from it? Is it making sure that you promote in the outro or in the intro, a certain type of lead magnet? Is it something that you'll get people to text? You'll get people to send to DM you? Especially at the beginning when, again, you don't have a huge audience?
Yeah, man. And that's a great question. And so there's literally, like, I wouldn't be able to cover all of them in this time frame, but there's so many ways that you can get creative and do that, and ways that I do it, and show my students to do it as well. So for email lists specifically, I have a lot of shows where I do content upgrades. And what I mean by that is so I'll do interviews like we're doing our interview right after this on my show. Obviously, I wouldn't do it on that, but I recommend, where you interview people that are crushing it like yourself on your show, and then also where you do solo episodes where it's just like you talking about a specific topic, for an example. And that could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you want to make it, but it doesn't have to be long is what I'm getting at when you're doing that solo. And during that one topic that you're talking about, you can offer a content upgrade, and you can literally make some type of lead magnet to give away that shouldn't take you long at all, like 5 minutes to create. You could do it on Canva, or you could do it on Photoshop, or you can hire your team if you have that in place to do that as well, and really, really do it the right way. But literally, it doesn't take you long to create, and then you can offer that. So to give an example, we were talking about that book, The One Thing, before we started this interview, how I was telling you about how that book completely changed the game for me. I'm literally going through a series right now of solo episodes on my podcast where I'm talking about each chapter, because that book was so impactful. It literally helped me out so much, and I feel like it'll help my audience as well. And going through that, and at the I make a little content upgrade for each one, like a little PDF. It could be just the steps, literally, if there was a 4-step process during that chapter, I can list it out. Hey guys, if you want to save this on your screensaver, just have it on your phone or wallpaper on your phone, you can go here and download the content upgrade, or download the guide or whatever. And then that's a great way to build your email list, is by giving those content upgrades. And what you would do during the episode is you would deliver the heat of the the meat and potatoes of what you're teaching, of what you learned. And then at the end, you do a summary, like, okay, so we know we do this first to get to X. And then after you get to X, you do this to get to Y, boom, 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 boom. Hey, if you guys want a detailed report of that, hop on over here to boom, 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 and I'll send it directly to your email. Simple as that. And then that's a way to build your email list. And the key is, though, is like you mentioned, man, treat every single episode like a business, because it is a podcast. You're doing this because obviously you love podcasting, and it's awesome to have that as a hobby, but treat it as a business and grow, because you can help more people by growing and helping yourself in the process. And you can't fill up another cup without filling up yours first. So dude, there's like literally so, and you know what, man, I'm just going to shut up because I will end up talking too long, but we can dive in deeper if there's more.
No, man, I love this. I love to hear, actually.
No doubt, man. If you don't mind, dude, it's another thing real quick, because it's like I can't shut up when I start talking about it. But if you're starting out a podcast and you don't have a product yet of your own to sell, or you're still trying to figure that out, or you're just getting started or whatnot, I recommend, and I still do, I'm still heavy on affiliate marketing, and it's so perfect for podcasting because you have offers that you use that have helped you and that are proven offers and that help other people, and that all the marketing is done for it. And you can do episodes based around that, promoting those products. And there's so many, like I literally have a framework of 5 different ways to promote an affiliate product. One of them, though, one of the most impactful ways is to, for instance, I'll give you a live example. I interviewed the CEO of TubeBuddy, which is a tool on YouTube that you know about it. Yeah, it literally saves me. I've been using it since 2017. It saves me hundreds of hours of optimizing video and helps me rank my videos on YouTube. And so I interviewed Phil, the CEO, on there. And what I did, instead of just getting on there and talking about all the features of the product and stuff like that, nah, man, we sat there and went deep on his story, on the product origin story of why he started it, why he's so passionate about it, what the mission is behind it. And then he hooked me up with I already had an affiliate link to promote it, but he hooked me up with a promo code on top of that gave my listeners 20% off. So after we go through all that, then I command my audience, hey guys, if you're on YouTube, you need to be using this to build your YouTube channel out. Go to tubebuddy.com/underdog and use promo code UnderdogBuddy to get 20% off. That's an exclusive Underdog Empowerment listener deal. Boom. And now that episode is going to generate income from me referring a product that I know works and will help my audience if they're on YouTube. And the best part about it is that can end up making me money 10 years down the road, because podcast episodes are evergreen. The algorithm doesn't kill it a day or a week from now like it does on Instagram or Facebook, unless you're using paid advertising. If somebody goes and subscribes to your podcast, they always have access to it. So that's the reason why it's so awesome.
Love it, man. And I love the fact that, a lot of people would say, oh, so I'm not necessarily selling anything now. What's the point of starting a podcast? Well, that's the main reason, because you can literally just promote affiliate offers and, you don't have to have a product right from the get-go. So that's important. And you also mentioned something really powerful, like on Facebook and Instagram, you do a post, you do a Facebook Live, you do an Instagram Live, whatever. I mean, on Facebook, you can still promote the live videos, but once you're done promoting, it's done. And it's true, like on iTunes. And the reason that I love podcasts so much is it's so different. Like, think about the medium. Like on Facebook and Instagram, you interrupt people. On iTunes, people, like, I'm thinking about myself. I go in the morning at 6 a.m., hitting the gym for an hour and a half. I have my earbuds on for an hour and a half, just consuming and knowing exactly, either from the night before or from, that morning, all right, I'm going to binge listen, 6 episodes, whatever, depending on the length. But that's so different than, all right, now I'm just going to scroll to my feed and somebody's going to interrupt me, versus, all right, I'm actually going to put my earbuds on, and now for an hour and a half, I don't want to be bothered. I want to listen to whatever episodes I want and then do my thing at the gym, and boom. So for an hour and a half, you can be in somebody's ears, It's
a lot of attention.
It's a lot. Yeah, exactly, man. So if you're doing the right thing, I do believe that it's one of the most powerful mediums that we can attract customers. You killed it, man. You shared some really interesting and powerful strategies. I hope people are taking notes, and we'll make sure they do. So let me ask you this. Do you think podcasts are just for B2B, just for people that are selling to other businesses or other entrepreneurs, or literally any niche can have a podcast? What's your thought on that?
It's clear any niche can have a podcast. I mean, like, we can go through examples of Joe Rogan. Since it's one of the top podcast, it is top podcast in the world. On every single episode, all of his episodes are 3+ hour longs, yet people listen to the whole thing, because that's how podcasters are. 87% of people, and this is coming from Nielsen reports, 87% of people that listen to podcasts listen either to the whole episode or most of it. And like you mentioned, they binge watch it, just like a Netflix thing. They go and binge watch the whole entire show. Joe Rogan, he in the beginning of every single episode, he does his advertisements, like his own voice, where he's recommending all the different products, and some of them are like health supplements, some of them are like the Cash App that he's always promoting, or whatever it is, and it's for such a wide range, large audience, because that's what he's able to attract with his character. He's hitting on a lot of different people. So that's one example. Then you got, people like Pat Flynn with the Smart Passive Income, and he's promoting things like Bluehost for your hosting service, and he's making over $100,000 a month through just his affiliate income alone. Like, it doesn't matter what niche you're in. There's literally podcasts for everybody, and it's such a growing thing right now. Like, dude, the podcast in 2018 alone seen explosive growth, like a 50% relative jump from the year before in 2017, and it went up to 23.4%. Don't quote me on the point, whatever, but it's through Chartable article, where there's 20 million more active listeners are listening to podcasts multiple times a week, and over 91 million new active listeners listen to it at least once a week. That's a lot of attention that's being paid to your brand. And it's just, like you said, it's where it's at, where you can really build that deep, meaningful relationship with the audience.
True story. No, it's really powerful. And, I just believe, and I wanted to hear your opinion on this. I believe that doesn't matter what niche you're in, if you can just educate people on the problems that your product or service is solving, that's it. I mean, you don't need to brainstorm some weird, type of episodes. But I just believe that if you solve a problem, you can have a podcast to educate people how to solve it, by demonstrating them in audio format.
100%, man.
Love it, man. So I know we're getting close to wrapping things up here. I want to hear because we talked about the strategies that you recommend to other people, but I want to hear the mission of Underdog Empowerment. Like, what's the mission behind it? What exactly are you trying to accomplish, let's say 3-5 years down the road, for your audience and for the people that you serve?
Yeah, man, I love this question. So for Underdog Empowerment specifically, that my goal with that is to have it, and it is the number one resource for underdog entrepreneurs to help them get to the next level in their business and life. But I remember what it felt like when everybody was counting me out, and now I'm starting to make believers, out of people. But it wasn't always like that, man. I remember what it felt like when everybody was counting you out, laughing at you, and it's not a good feeling. But it's really key to utilize that underdog mentality. As far as, here's what I share with everybody: the underdog mentality is so powerful, of wanting to go out and prove those people wrong. That's awesome.
I love that, man. And you just proved that you know your why, but you know the mission that you're trying to accomplish with not just the show, but the fact that you're trying to create a movement around that. And I think that's powerful, man. And it's something that I think a lot of people would align with, because we all start from somewhere, and regardless of the level that you start at the beginning, you just don't know what you don't know, right? So I think that's super powerful. So again, you shared some killer strategies and some powerful tactics in here, and I'll make sure I'll recap all of it at the end in the outro. But if somebody wants to get in touch with you, if somebody wants to get more familiar with the Underdog Empowerment movement, where they can go, how they can learn more.
Yeah, man, right on. Absolutely, dude. Yeah, obviously I'm really passionate about the podcast, Underdog Empowerment. If you dig this interview, man, come check out the podcast, dude. It's on all the different platforms that you listen to podcasts on. And to make it really easy for you, it's on underdogempowerment.com. And you can select whatever platform that makes sense for you. And I hope to see you over there.
Awesome, man. And of course, guys, we'll make sure we list all the links in the description below. So make sure to check the show notes or the full description, whatever the platform that you're consuming this, but we'll make sure we'll add all of them right there. Zach, again, my man, really appreciate all the time that you share with us today and all the tactics and strategies, and looking forward to connect with you, man. Actually, we'll probably reach out back to you in a couple of months, just once my podcast is getting, it's growing to another level, maybe just to get some follow-up feedback on the tactics, if that's okay with you.
100%, man. I'm looking forward to doing our interview right after this.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate it again. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Zachary, and now you're ready to go and start implementing all the strategies that he gave us. And again, don't forget about our weekly giveaway. The only thing you need to do is just rate and review the podcast. Shoot me a screenshot of it at Marian Esanu on Instagram. Just direct message me, and you automatically enter into our weekly giveaway, where you can get a bunch of books, access to courses, launches, JV partnerships, and a bunch of other things that you cannot get anywhere else without paying for it, right? And that's pretty awesome. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. And until next week, go crush it. Hey, podcast listeners, I want you to know that I really appreciate your attention and I don't take it lightly. That's why each month we pick a lucky winner and we give away books, mentorship, software, courses, iPads, and other cool stuff. The way to enter is go to clientacquisitionpodcast.com and sign up. You'll get all the details there. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.